Today on the show, we have a very special guest. Patrick Hebert is here to talk about the communities he's building. Welcome to the podcast, Patrick.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I appreciate being on your show.
It's nice to have a LATAM connection here. So,
Just one country over, I guess.
Pardon me?
Just one country over, I guess, today.
Yeah. So I'm in Costa Rica and Patrick's in Panama. And I think we're both relocated Canadians.
Correct. Yeah.
So maybe a good place to start is a bit of your background that took you to the building space.
Yeah, I'll try to make the story not too long here, but as you mentioned, I was originally Canadian, and I was in the software industry, computer science degree and that sort of thing, and created a couple software companies for the oil and gas energy space, and was able to fortunately sell it and at a pretty good timing. So I was able to take a little time off with my family, my kids, and travel around a bit. And one of the places we landed up was actually in Nicaragua, just country just above you in Costa Rica. And I was a bit like a kid in a candy store because the property was so inexpensive. I was living in Vancouver Island area in Canada, and it's kind of like the San Francisco Bay Area in the US, where it's super expensive property, and especially for waterfront, oceanfront property. So when I saw the property prices in Latin America, I was like, oh, I'm going to get myself a place. And I really just wanted, at that time, just a tiny little sliver of a place to live on the beach or have a place to go to on the beach. And
it sounds familiar.
Anyway, I ended up buying a farm that was on the beach and a kilometer of space of farm beachfront. And so I thought, well, I'm a software guy. I can create a website and see if anybody's interested in being a neighbor and subdivide the property up. And that's how everything got started, to being in the residential community development space. So that was about 25 years ago now, I guess. But so we've been building communities ever since then.
And so what's the mission with building the communities? What's the goal?
Well, it's been an evolution, to be honest, Kevin. And we started building kind of regular types of communities, beachfront resort type things and residential communities. But I lived on a boat with my son for a while up in Canada, off of Vancouver Island, so sailing around in the ocean. And it was very liberating and, a very freedom-oriented life. We were catching our own food or, creating our own potable water from the salt water with reverse osmosis and all those sorts of things. And nobody, producing our own power, and nobody was, no government and no corporation was really in control of our lives. And I didn't realize how freeing that was. And so at some point it kind of hit me. I said, I want to take that to land. And so, the challenge was 20 years ago to create an off-grid luxury community. Everybody said you can't do that. It's just not possible. You can't produce enough power with solar systems and things like that. So I took it as a challenge, and we actually did create the first community in Nicaragua at the time. That was 100% off-grid, but luxury homes, large homes with 5 bedrooms and all the flat screen TVs and all those sorts of things that you want in your home. And you wouldn't know it was any different except you didn't have any power bill. And so we just kept moving on with that kind of philosophy. And then when COVID hit, we actually created what we call the FIRST philosophy, FIRST, stands for freedom, independence, resilience, sustainability, and transparency. And it kind of resonates with a lot of people these days that are sort of tired of the authoritarian government doing all sorts of things. As a fellow Canadian, you know the things that Canada did during COVID with all the lockdowns and mandates and putting pastors in jail for having a congregation, or arenas could be open for hockey games, but you couldn't go to the gym, and there was all sorts. You couldn't go to the beach even though viruses don't like either salt water or UV light. So it was just nothing made sense. And so we created these communities called Veritas Villages now around different countries in Latin America, and I can explain why we chose this region. But that really was the impetus to do that. Is originally it was just sort of we need to create a place for family and friends that is sheltered from that kind of nonsense, and we can just close the gate. And we have our own food, we have our own water, we're 100% off grid. Nobody's in control of anything that we do here. And it's just a very freedom-oriented, self-sustainable life, but still with a community of like-minded people. So it just really took off. We had we created the first one, and we had a webinar, and I think within an hour we sold 90% of it, and 100 homes or whatever. So it was really popular, and it continues to be popular. We have a nice problem to have, is we can't create the inventory as fast as we have people interested. So it's
That's
been great.
incredible. So I would like to dig into a bit more, like you said, in terms of why you're building in the area. I guess I'll start with this. Why not build in Canada?
Well, I mean, it's pretty hard to create freedom-oriented communities in an authoritarian nation. So,
Yeah,
I mean, Canada, I think there's a race to the bottom when it comes to Canada, the UK. The UK announced exit and wealth taxes, and I think last year they set a record of roughly 15,500 or something like that. High net worth people left the country. Norway tried that a while ago, and they don't realize that all those people are the ones that create the businesses, create the jobs, and pay the bulk of the taxes. And they flee, then it just cripples your economy. And Canada is going to find that out over the next few years as well. And even the US and a lot of European countries, Germany, France, they're all going through the same thing. Netherlands actually retracted their ridiculous statement from the law from a few weeks ago, where they put a tax, I think it was 36% tax on unrealized gains.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a crippling thing. I mean, you can just play that out and see how bad that is. And I guess they got enough flack that they actually are saying that they're going to, strike that down now. And then Denmark just set some new rules too. So it was interesting the other day. Here actually, I'm at Veritas Village Coronado in our welcome center now, and this is one of our flagship communities, one of the earlier one, or one of the current ones that's kind of growing fast. And we had couples from 10 different countries in a row a couple weeks ago, viewing and wanting to buy a home here. And they were all like-minded, kind of libertarian, freedom-oriented Bitcoin kind of people. But they're all from 10 different countries, like Italy, France, Netherlands, Germany, UK, Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia. So all kind of spanning the world, but there's a lot of people that think like us, I guess. And my estimate is somewhere around 2 to 5% of the world is kind of freedom oriented and kind of waking up to what Western governments are starting to do. And so we're not alone. Even 5% of the world's population is a pretty big number. So
yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, my experience in Canada with COVID was having bank accounts frozen and making, the police locally found it just to be an enormous violation that my kids would be playing outdoor hockey, in the evening, and that was shut down, like shut down aggressively.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like there was I used to walk in High Park with my dog, which is a big park in Toronto, and they put a fence around the whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing, like unbelievable use of public resources to stop people from. And the irony with High Park was it was donated by a person to the city of Toronto on one condition, and that one condition is that it remained open to the public. And so,
if only they could take it back now.
We had these laws, we had this Charter of Rights, and then I don't know what happened. Like I thought those were important. So one question I have is, if you run into, there's so many questions I have. First of all, let's start with the community, because for me, I discovered Bitcoin after I left Canada. When I was looking back at the matrix, none of seeing the fake food, fake money, fake news, fake everything, it just became super clear that there had to be a better solution that didn't involve the government just printing money at will while we all worked for it.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of a realization. But what gave me hope after that realization, because when I came here, I really didn't have hope. I was, literally just trying to get out with my assets and my safety at that point. And it's interesting times. So my question related to that in the community and these people coming from all across the world and connecting, like Bitcoin for me gave me hope. And then what I discovered after a period of time was that really the Bitcoin community was what gave me hope, is these people pushing this idea forward kind of with, in a unified voice, and nobody really had to talk to each other to know what they thought. And so, I'm just trying to understand how you're able to bring that community together. It's just, a
Well,
whistle that you put out and everybody knows.
yeah, I guess it's amazing how, like-minded people find each other, I guess, and, doing things like this on podcasts, and people hear about what we're doing, and they can relate very quickly to it. And like I said, it's a pretty loyal group once they find each other. It's just so refreshing that, I mean, I really can't stand the censorship and cancel culture of the woke world these days. And you can sit here in our welcome center and have a glass of wine, watch a sunset with anybody in the community and not be afraid at all of what you say, because everybody's, open-minded enough to, you might agree to disagree on things, but that's kind of how things used to be. You don't get canceled for anything you say. And it's just refreshing because, somebody might feel, throw out some conspiracy theory or something that like the COVID-19 virus was man-made, and then you find out 4 or 5 years later that, hey, I think pretty much everybody agrees with that now. So
Yeah.
it's those kind of conversations you couldn't have. Like, I mean, I have family members and friends that just literally have canceled me. They consider me a wild conspiracy maverick out there, and all we're
Yeah.
doing is building very sane communities for people that have a logic and open mind, and are open to talking about different things and enjoying their neighbors and living kind of the old fashioned way. Where I grew up in a small town in Manitoba province in Canada, and to me it's kind of like that here. We have a stream with minnows in it that kids can go catch minnows and butterflies and things like that. And we're going to have a school on site here, so your field trips are just literally right outside your door. And it's a very peaceful place to live. And so, we decide one of the benefits, I guess, we have too. Well, the other thing you mentioned is why in this area. Well, as you've probably discovered now, the Latino culture is very live and let live. They don't really consider putting mandates on you. I mean, they went through the same fear of COVID and things that a lot of places did, but they kind of lifted them faster.
Mhm.
Nicaragua was actually a little beacon of light in the world at that time. It didn't put any mask mandates or vaccine mandates in at all, and basically said, the president, for all his shortcomings, I guess, came out and said, I'm not your father, you're not children. You know, treat yourself as you would like your neighbors to treat you. And if you need help with your elderly people in your family, the government is here to help you, but we're not going to shut down our economy or anything like that. So that was a little bastion of freedom among here, and that's kind of the culture of Latin America in general, I find. And so we're here. We have two of these communities in Panama. We're just opening up one in Costa Rica very soon. So it won't be
Pura,
too. What's that?
Pura Vida.
Yeah, exactly. And that one's going to be in the Atenas area, which is got the fame of being noted by National Geographic as the best climate in the world. So that always helps on the marketing side too. It's kind of like springtime all the time. And we have one in Nicaragua as well, Veritas Village in Nicaragua. And so it takes us, my son and I, a long time to find these community locations, because we have a long checklist of what, when you're completely off grid and you're growing your own food and you have to produce your own water and energy and everything. It's not easy to sometimes find the beautiful locations like we have here. And the Costa Rica and all the communities are located in beautiful places with rivers running through them, or in the mountains with amazing views of the ocean and things like that. But it's also got to check the boxes of we can grow enough food here. Like, it's difficult to do it on the beach because of saltwater spray and heat. Generally, you can't grow as much stuff. So we are usually kind of in sweet spot is sort of like 300 meters, 1,000 feet elevation or higher in there, and that it's a little bit cooler. You don't have the salt spray. You can grow anything. As you have a year-round growing season here, so it's not like Canada where you got 3 or 4 months to grow your food. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's another reason why we wouldn't do it in Canada. And being off grid with solar systems, you get so much solar power here near the equator that, it's so much easier to create off grid homes. And the technology has changed an awful lot in the last years too. But it'd be much more difficult to frankly do it in Canada or the southern end of Chile or something. It would also be difficult. Closer to the equator is just happens to have the best culture and the best climate.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I mean, the climate here in Costa Rica, I'm on the beach, and most days it's well into the 30s. Hot sand beach, it's just absurdly hot.
Yeah.
So, you're going outside in the morning and at night. But then if we go into San Jose, through Tinas, it can be 10, 15 degrees cooler. It could be 35 degrees on the beach and 15 in San Jose in the night. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's
I mean,
really,
I have a place in Panama City, and I'm less than an hour or about an hour's drive from there here in the community. But Panama City is excruciatingly hot. I mean, no bones about it. It's like you said. It's at night. It's 25 Celsius. So what is that? Close to 80 Fahrenheit, and then
yeah,
in the high 90s every day in Fahrenheit, and so in the low 30s Celsius. Here at Coronado in our Veritas Village here, it's more like 21 to 27. So that's kind of the year-round range. So it's warm enough that you can use your swimming pools and stuff like that, and enjoy being outside all day. Cool enough at night that you barely have to air condition. And once you get acclimatized, you generally don't.
yes. Well, this is amazing. I again have so many questions, but I'll just keep going through a few of these. So now you're building. So I guess one of the questions I have, and maybe you have some clients who have concerns about this, in terms of investing in developing markets with respect to property rights or anything like that. Do you have pushback from clients who have concerns? I mean, not that property rights are enshrined. I mean, there's some stories about what's going on in the property market in Vancouver now with respect to,
Yeah,
property
I think the
rights.
natives claimed Kamloops in BC. I don't know how that's going for them, but I mean that kind of thing also wouldn't ever happen here because you wouldn't ever get that. I'm sorry, but that woke kind of concept, like, oh, we're on stolen land or something like that. That's just not how people think down here. It's like, sorry, this land was conquered. It's now titled and for sale. That's how it works, right?
Yeah. I
So
bought my place on the beach here. And the other piece I was going to tell you is I planted bananas, and a few fruits. And within 6 months, I was eating bananas from something that I planted. It's
yeah,
incredible.
it's
They were
crazy, isn't
small
it? Like,
bananas, but still.
I always laugh at the papaya trees because they grow like 20 or 30 feet tall in a year and a half. And we actually have to cut them down because they're covering the solar panels and stuff and shading the solar panels. So it's, within months you have all sorts of fruit. We have an orchard here that my grandson was just raiding the other day, and just star fruit and bananas and lemons and limes and all sorts of things. So it's amazing. That's another thing. Like, not only can we have a much smaller panels or system here than you'd need in northern Canada or whatever, but you can grow everything year round, and you can have an orchard that's, it's a number of acres our orchard here, but it's still not huge, and it's still easily enough to feed the community. So
Yeah, incredible. Um, so you mentioned you're working on this new project in Costa Rica now. So my next question is generally walk me through what you're building right now and why, and bonus points if it enables freedom and inclusion. So I'm really interested in hearing more about this project.
well, all the Veritas villages follow the same first philosophy. They're all about freedom. Freedom includes lots of different freedoms. Freedom of, socially being free, but also financial freedom. So they're all Bitcoin-centric communities. We don't have many rules, but any commercial businesses within the communities have to use Bitcoin or accept Bitcoin. They can also accept US dollars or whatever currency they want, but one of them has to be Bitcoin. We are creating basically Bitcoin citadels throughout the region. I think one of the advantages we have is because, like, a lot of developers come down, they buy a big tract of land and they're not really developed. They don't really know what they're doing. And they often, sell to their sister and their dentist, and that's where it stops. And then nobody's paying HOA fees, and they're just flipping lots, and it just never becomes a community. We have a number of things that we do to avoid that. Unfortunately, our communities have been so popular that they become communities very quickly. But the beauty of that too is, I was just got back a couple days ago from Argentina. We're looking in the Mendoza, Cordoba area of Argentina to create another Veritas village. I'm going this weekend to El Salvador. Obviously, when you have Bitcoin citadel communities, Salvador is one of the more likely places to have one. We're just working with the government there on residency programs so that, because it doesn't pay to have a home if you can't be a resident there, especially as a plan B. If it's kind of an escape route for you, then you kind of need a residency. And so the beauty of having all these Veritas Village communities around Latin America, and it'll be outside of Latin America, we're looking in Malaysia and different areas as well. But you can visit any one of them as a resident. You get to use all the amenities and discounts at the restaurants and things and shops and things like that. As you know, and it doesn't pigeonhole you into, well, if I move to Costa Rica, I have to really like Costa Rica because I can't go anywhere else. That's my home now. With Veritas Villages, I mean, they're obviously easy to sell your home too because of the demand, but you could just say, oh, I'm going to spend, like we have clients that buy a home in one in Panama, one in Costa Rica, and likely it would be one in Argentina because they like vineyards and growing their own grapes for their own wine and stuff like that. Our Costa Rica property used to be a big coffee plantation, so you can imagine how many coffee plants we have in there. People can we already make Veritas Village coffee now, and so they all have the same freedom-oriented philosophy, like I said. So they're all attracting like-minded people. Doesn't matter which country. It's just same kind of person that just appreciates freedom and doesn't want to. It's kind of a libertarian philosophy and like do no harm and you know that's about it, right? So,
Yeah, it's I think coming here, what I realized is it's kind of, I almost feel like it's a bit of the language. Like in learning Spanish, people are thinking differently. They're not thinking the way that people think in Canada and the United States. Their language doesn't even support that thinking, and so I
yeah.
find it pretty interesting.
Well, they're
Do you-
super family oriented too, which is really important to us as well. I mean, I'm not saying it, conservative from a right or left politics perspective, but they're conservative family, kind of values. And a lot of things that go along with that. Gun ownership is quite easy to have here and those sorts of things. I wouldn't break into a Veritas Village if I was anybody that there's a lot of gun owners in the community. Not that that is a thing, but I'm just saying that's another one of those freedom oriented things. If you want to have a gun, you can have a gun and nobody's going to tell you you can't. So it's just a, yeah. My wife is from Ecuador. And so I'm always learning more Latina type of things. And it's just their family is excruciatingly close. Like it's very common for a kid in a family to live with their parents until they're in their 30s. Now it's common in Canada too for different reasons because they can't afford to buy their own home. But down in this part of the world, they want to be together, right, for as long as possible. And they, when the parents get older, it's just understood that the kids are looking to them. You can't really find old folks homes or whatever you want to call them, right?
yeah,
Because it's the family's responsibility, and nobody even thinks that about. I'm not putting my mother in a home. That's ridiculous, right? So it's a very family oriented, very nice values, and so that kind of woke mindset of DEI and everything like that just doesn't get absorbed here because it's just like, what are you talking about that so
yeah,
I kind of like that part of the culture too.
yeah. What are the biggest tech or operational challenges you run into with these communities? It sounds like it's a long process, obviously,
It
permits and
is.
moving.
It's permitting. Government permitting is still difficult. The one thing about Latin America, as you probably discovered, is it moves extremely slowly. I mean, that's both the good and the bad side of the sword, right? It
Yeah,
it really, if you're in a rat race kind of, like I was in the software business, that's a very dog eat dog kind of business. But when I moved down here, it just instantly all that rat race is gone. Nobody's in a rush to do anything. But so that really is nice, probably makes you live a lot longer without that kind of stress. But on the other time, like my background is German.
uh-oh. This is the reality we sometimes run into in Latin America. Sometimes in Latin America, what I find is the technology. Like I had internet issues yesterday morning. Sometimes there's no electricity. So I don't know if you hit the wrong button, but what
Yeah, no, somebody was calling me and some reason it bumped me off of here. I don't know what happened on your side, but
it
hopefully I
just,
thought I put do not disturb on, but apparently it got through. Anyway, yeah, I mean, well, we use Starlink in our communities, and it's been very reliable, and so we have no issues with the internet. And a lot of people, I'm doing podcasts and things like I am right now. This Welcome Center is 100% off grid, and everything is as is everything here. There is no power line coming into this community at all.
it's
So
amazing.
yeah, and anyway, culturally, yeah, I think it's just the slowness is frustrating on one side. Like when I went to buy guitar strings the other day, and it took me like an hour because I saw them on the shelf, but I had to go to the warehouse to get them and then they bring them back and you go to a different cashier, and then you go to a guy that stamps the invoice, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. If a Best
Yeah.
Buy opened up beside you, you'd be wiped out. But
Yeah.
on the on the good side is, it really takes the stress level down. But for us, the challenge is permitting. Permitting, it takes forever. The governments really are into environmental protection, which is good, but they make that ambiente environmental permit here takes forever to get sometimes, especially when you're changing this. These communities used to be farmland, right, or like ranches and different things like that. And when you're changing a ranch into a residential community and subdividing the lots, it's a lot of work. I don't recommend it for anybody unless you have a lot of stamina and stubbornness, but it can take years to get that through, and so that's really the thing that slows us down. And it's frustrating because we have such a large growing following of people that want to live in these communities, but they have to wait. Fortunately, the one in Costa Rica is going very quickly, and I think our goal is in April to be able to open up the first home sites there.
Amazing. So, you've been in the space for a long time now, the freedom space, I'll call it, and the building space. What is your best advice for builders?
Stay out of Latin America. It's frustrating to build here. I honestly don't if you're a person, I'm not promoting this just because it's our communities, but we build all our own homes. We don't let anybody else come in and build homes, because if somebody gets a bad home, a bad quality home, it just reflects poorly on the community. And that goes for property and rental management as well. If you rent a home through Airbnb in one of our communities and it's not clean, or it doesn't have the utensils you wanted, or whatever the issue is, the toilet doesn't flush or something, it just you reflects on the community, and you think, oh, this place is garbage, I don't want to live here. So the same thing happens with home building. One of the beauties of Latin America too is that people don't like to say no, right? So if you ask anybody that you meet on the street, are you an electrician? Yes. Are you a plumber? Yes. Are you a structural engineer? Yes. All right. They don't like to say no. So you think you're hiring a builder that's of quality, and do you build good homes? Oh, absolutely. Yes. They may have never built a home before. They just don't want to say no. And then you get what you expect when that's the case. And it's just, so I don't recommend, like in Canada or US or Europe, you could just say, you hire a builder and say, I'll come back in 6 months and see how it's going. That isn't possible here. I've had so many early, 25 years ago when I was cutting my teeth at this, so many bad experiences. I had homes built on the wrong lot. I had homes
Wow.
built backwards with the back of the home facing the street. And, I've had homes that were painted all blue, and, and they were supposed to be a totally different color. So it's just all sorts of different things that just, you wouldn't even imagine it. Someday I'll write a book on a few chapters on home construction in Latin America, but it's a challenge.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, Patrick, to explain what you're doing and give some tips for everybody watching. Is there anywhere we can send people who want to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to veritasvillages.com, villages with an S, Veritas is in the Latin word for truth. And, there's a contact us form. Our property experts are very responsive. You'll probably find that surprising too in Latin America, because, most people, like I said, time doesn't mean much to Latin America. So you might get a response back in a week or two. Here you'll get a response back or an hour or two from our folks. So, and I always recommend to people to come down and visit the areas too. Like, before we get a lot of people that will buy a home sight unseen and just be ecstatic that they've got a place. But it's best if you can come down and tour around a little bit, check if the area is going to be something that you like, and then just have an open mind and realize that things are going to move slower when you get here. If you want to get groceries and the hardware stuff that we want to buy and wash your car and whatever else in a day, pick one thing. That's probably all you're going to get done in one day. So it's a different kind of life, but it's a great life for people that are looking to kind of slow down their mind a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's been amazing for me. Completely one of the better decisions I've ever made in my life was leaving Canada and coming here. And I thought of a few other places, and I have absolutely no regrets here. So yeah, I,
Well,
you
I think the
know,
other thing, Kevin, is that a lot of people feel guilt when they're talking about this. Like you just said, one of the better decisions you made was leaving Canada. I love Canada. I love the natural beauty of Canada, and I love having a sailboat there and sailing around and then just enjoying the mountains and the creeks and lakes and everything. It's the politics that is killing the country, and it's those the economy, I mean, is just on a spiral downward. And, like I said, a race to the bottom with the UK and Germany and France and Netherlands. Everybody seems to want to, who can be the worst at running a country. But
yeah,
I don't have any guilt, in leaving Canada. I'm a little disappointed, honestly, in the people right now, reelecting the same government that, you know, destroyed half the country. So that
I,
surprised me a bit, but I think that was just an anti-Trump vote, and that might change in the future. But it's getting to
yeah.
the point, like I think you mentioned, printing money and stuff like that. It's getting to the point where it's irreversible. It's just not sustainable. Um,
No, I have kids there who are still in university. They're 22, 20, and 18. And I really I don't see any possibility for them to, stay in Canada and kind of progress with opportunities. They're just going to be shut out. And it's completely horrifying to see, there's so many problems. And you say it's politics, right? And I think I used to think that, but I think the problems are with the money. And if we fix the money, right? So we take the power away from these politicians who can print, this additional money, give themselves additional powers, not balance the budget. What happens over time is, as a society, we're just increasing a bigger and bigger percentage of everything we produce into government. And if you told any investor that they were going to be long government to the limit, this was what they were going to invest in, people would give you a hard shake, right? But
yeah,
that's what's happening in Canada and most of the developed world. So I agree with you when you say you're disappointed in other Canadians, right? Like your neighbors were calling in. If your son had friends over, the police showed up during
yeah,
COVID because your neighbors called the police, and
that was ridiculous.
it's
Yeah, that's it. And that's another thing about the culture here that would never happen down here. I mean, your neighbors are your support group around here, and yeah, I mean, the other thing with, yeah, it'd be great if Canada would just adopt Bitcoin like El Salvador did, and that would help fix, 50% of the problems with the economy because it
I
could,
think closer to 90. I honestly
yeah,
think closer
yeah,
to 90. And look at the experience
you're
of El
probably right.
Salvador, and it supports it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been a Bitcoin treasury company since we began. I mean, before that was cool, right? People have been able. You can buy your home and lot here in any of our communities with Bitcoin. I mentioned the commercial entities have to accept Bitcoin. We mine Bitcoin with excess solar power. We we are a Bitcoin treasury company. We accept and keep as much of our treasury assets we're a public company. Our symbol is AUTR if you want to look on the stock market. But we are big believers in Bitcoin, and we're creating Bitcoin circular communities. And I'm happy that we have a lot of our assets in Bitcoin. I don't really care about the short term, volatility, ups and downs. It doesn't matter at all. We keep enough. We have to. It's the only reason we do. We keep enough in fiat because in order to build homes, we have to still pay with U.S. dollars. But if in El Salvador we don't, we can pay builders with Bitcoin. So it just makes more sense for everybody to consider Bitcoin. If you're not into it yet, you should. And everybody thinks, oh, I'm in too late. It's like you aren't in too late. Now's a great time to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I also have to thank you now for the therapy session, Patrick. And I know we'll run out of time, and I want to connect. Obviously, Dana can probably help with some financial solutions for your clients. Maybe I'll send you some information. I really appreciate your time today, and look forward to reconnecting soon.
Great. Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, Kevin. And yeah, absolutely. I think some of the things that you guys do with Bitcoin-backed loans and things like that is right up our customers, our clients' alley, because people like to self-custodian their Bitcoin, but they're willing to use it to back buying a home or whatever it is. So there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that we could talk about for sure.
Sounds good. We'll reconnect soon.